Did you say you did have it? I'm glad I'll retreat over there. He's coming. Well, not good news.
Seems pretty well prepared.
Oh, yeah. Oh, you read it off the. You read it off a piece of paper.
Yeah, threw a couple things from the pocket.
All right, let's get rolling. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming. We have any personal appearances this evening? All right, let's move on to the minutes from our October meeting.
To approve the minutes of the October 20th meeting.
Motion moved by Commissioner Emery,
Second.
second by Commissioner Kitzman. Any discussion? Questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, approval of the bills, looks like $2,634,662.62.
So move to pay the bills?
Second. Motion and a second, Schmidt and Hoda. Any discussion? Discussion? Ellie?
Hoda,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Kitzman,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes. Salaries, $327,790.81.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Emery, second by Kitzman. It's close. You can video review it. Any discussion? Discussion? Ellie?
Hoda,
Yeah.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Emery,
Yes.
Kitzman,
Yes.
Olson,
Yes. Financials, I know Callan's gone. He got a great excuse. He had a second child, right, yesterday. So congratulations to them. Boy? Can't hear you.
It's a boy.
Oh, okay. We'll go to the, we've got 6 feet, so we're good. Department reports. Jared was saying that I think he's talked about.
Yeah, for President, Commissioners, hi, no podium, so stand over in the corner. No department head has anything to add to their reports tonight, but they will answer any questions at this time if any commissioners or president has anything for them.
Anyone? Chance to look through them? I looked this afternoon. The, Steve, the bubble is good to go, it sounds like, for a golf, right?
Well, I talked to the golf coach yesterday. He was quarantined in a motel room. I haven't talked to Sean lately, but.
I asked today and I got a thumbs up, just so you know, so.
Starting right away?
I'd say if you called the athletic department office, I think it'll be.
Okay,
good news.
I'll call tomorrow, yeah.
Just a heads up on it.
We'll get it on Facebook then for the kids and stuff.
Yeah, I don't know when it's ready, but
Yeah.
I just asked him, I said, is it gonna happen or is it dead because of COVID? He goes, no.
Yeah, and actually I asked for 2 nights this year if we could work that in, so.
Anyway,
Great, thanks.
all right, no questions? All right, can always come back if something comes up, obviously. Let's go to new business and we'll start talking about the project list, capital project list for next year already, which is almost here. Ron, do you wanna kind of take us through it? It's not blocked. chances it's gonna work out.
All right, so we compiled a list. There's nothing on this list that you guys haven't seen already. But we wanted to start the discussion, especially for next year, for 2021, on the projects that we would like to get started. And we would do some kind of a bond issue. So between getting plans and specs ready, getting bids out, getting a bond rating and all of that, this is appropriate time for us to start this discussion. Hopefully make some kind of a decision by next month. And then we can start the process for what we need to do for these projects. This one we've been talking about for a long time. We have our estimate for the roadway and the parking lot. And we also, on the next slide, have the trail that we would like to do as well. These estimated costs from the A&E firms. We have some plan work done for these, but this is a good overview of this project. So for the roadway and parking lot, the infrastructure that we need to get into the site with a few amenities, this one is at about 1.1 million. So that gets us our roadway and paving and parking lot, curb and gutter, probably some lighting and a few other things. All right, now the trail part of the project, you can look on either one. It's the same picture that we just saw, but the blue is a hard surface trail that would go from the parking lot up to an overlook point. And then the red is a natural surface trail that goes around the huge drainage area that is in here that you guys, if you've been out to the site, you've seen it because we drive up to the edge of it. It's just beautiful, absolutely beautiful spot. There's drainage, there's a pond down there, there's even a little waterfall when the water's running through there. It's just a beautiful natural area, and once you get into it, you think you're somewhere else other than right on the edge of the city of Minot. So this trail is cut. Some of it goes onto the top of it, and then you go down into it, and we're cutting on the side all the way around it. So it's really neat. And we walked this summer, and the A&E firm kind of mapped it out. They GPS'd it, and we picked locations. So this is a really neat beginning of a trail. So you want to say anything?
Yeah, so as you guys know, we applied for Outdoor Heritage Fund, and as you probably tell, or I sent out the email, we did not get awarded funding once again from that fund. The more feedback I get, the more the golf course seems to be the biggest issue on that project. They really don't like the idea that we say undeveloped as far as the trails, and then there's a golf course right next to it. I feel like it still works for that directive, but we might want to shift our focus just because I think we want to get started on that this spring, obviously. So we were, like I said, turned down for that again. I did get good news today. They're not ready to be named yet because they'll do kind of a press release, but we did get $50,000 from another organization to go towards this project. So that's the bad and the good news, but I don't know if you want to talk about kind of the direction that we want to go for funding on this, and then maybe look for Outdoor Heritage Fund on some other.
Yeah, well, we'll talk locally again. Foundation also, potentially also talk about recreational trails program to maybe get some funding. Their limit is 150,000, so it won't pay for the whole thing. So we're going to look locally and also, use maybe our own funds, but we've got a short timeline to accomplish that. Otherwise, we need to just put it into our project if we're going to move ahead with it. So get the drawing started and get it bid out this, early this spring. So we may have to, we'll give it a shot with the others, and we were successful with one already. So
What is the point of contention with the golf course, Ellie?
Why are they upset about it?
Well, why does that concern them?
There's, if you look at the people that sit around that table, and for lots of funding reasons, golf courses for people and grants does not mix well. It's just the idea of it, but especially with this group, because the goal is to provide access to undeveloped areas for sportsmen, for families to get out and providing them access to those rural areas. And they don't like the idea of it sitting next to a golf course.
Even though that's not the case, and the golf course isn't a...
Right, and the thing is, out of us want to be transparent, we really took a lot of that stuff away from the golf course, but I can't I don't think we can in full faith hand them something that doesn't show the golf course.
Yeah.
Because that, it's going to be there. So, you know, would that have made a difference if we would have never mentioned it? Probably, but when they come to visit these trails in 10 years, it might not be such a.
If you look at directive D, I mean, any park project in a city park system would be eligible under directive D. It's very broad, and even a part of a golf course could be, could be funded through this fund. They just don't like the makeup of the group. They just don't like the idea. So they've been funding very few directive D projects, and it's getting less and less as time goes on, more towards other things. So
I'm getting to the point where I'm really, really thankful that we got 2 rounds of this grant for Woodland Trail. I don't know that we would have got those if we would have been putting them through right now.
Too close to the golf course?
Just in general, because directive D doesn't seem to be something that they're,
yeah, I think it's they just don't want.
if you look at the people who applied this time, there was not, I know not one park district applied. So I think it's something we probably should take a look at for sure.
All right, so that's another. There we go. Roosevelt Park Pool liner. This is something that we've got on our list. We've coated it with a special surfacing during the flood. It stained it permanently, and we've been having some issues with it peeling off. They make a liner system. It's like isn't it a PVC type liner that you can put in, and it basically makes the pool look brand new again. The shell is not the problem. It's just the kind of the coloring and the coating of it. So this is something that we have on our list now that the water slide is basically, at least it's standing. It looks great. They're going to finish the filtration and all of that, and we'll get that going in the spring. But that's something that if you go look at it now with the pool drained out, it looks, it's looking tough. When you get the water back in it, it doesn't, you don't notice it as much, but it will really make a big difference. So this is something that's on our list as well. And the City Discovery Center, the parking lot roadway project. This is the estimate that we have for this project. As you guys know, they're basically ready to go for a spring groundbreaking, so they'll be bidding the project out this winter. So this is another one that we have our plans basically done for this project. So we just need to go through some final stages, and we'd be ready to advertise this. So we're working the timing out with the whole group to see when our project needs to start. But when we get a start date, we need to be ready for this one because we committed to it. So this is the one that we're going to do. For sure, we're already committed to it. All right, so we're very proud of our new restroom over at the Woodland Trail. And so as we're talking about, this was brought up at the last meeting, looking at one for the Surrey Valley Golf Courses would certainly be something to look at. Could also look at one that has a flush toilet. If we have access to water, then you need either a tank, a holding tank, or a drain field. But there's at least one location where something like that would work. And then this would work for any location. So this is on this gives you an idea for the price of a structure like that. This one we like because it was really nice. And it looks nice, smells nice inside. So this would be something that we could look at for the golf course. All right, leopard exhibit is on the list as well. This is the estimated cost of the project. We don't have to come up with all of this money because there's been some fundraising and other funds that are set aside towards it. So, but that is the estimated cost, and we're going to see if we can get closer to being able to accomplish that and get that project started as well. We know we have floodplain issues that we're dealing with that we need to, before the floodplain becomes, the mapping becomes permanent, we'd like to break ground on this project. So this is on our list to try and figure out. I can say that's the price tag, but we do have money already to go towards this project. So we wanted to come up with the 2.8.
How much is, I know this, but I can't remember. Is it like $1 million already? Yeah, that's raised, or?
I don't know what the change orders added up to be, but in theory it's $1 million.
That's about. meeting if you wish, but to figure out, it's kind of, we're hoping that it's fluid because we have had, you know, the potential of donations still coming in.
Isn't there
The one that is very possible, so
Isn't there something in front of the community foundation, perhaps, for that?
perhaps, yes. I know there is one, but I don't know what the final result is yet, so.
We asked them for 250 million, or sorry.
Yes.
Everybody's stuff.
At this moment, we need to commend Ken for the great job he did.
Things have changed since that happened.
Sorry, they're going to look at in January.
So this dollar amount will change, but we'll give you an updated number on this for what we feel we have left to come up with, so. But we don't have the whole amount for sure. We definitely keep working on this one. We want to get it moving ahead. There, Mike. All right, now the next projects on the list are projects that we're looking at a little longer range. And as you know, we did this just basic site plan to see what could fit on the land next to the mesa. And on this drawing, we have a 4th rink. We also have a field house. We have an aquatic center. We talked about a curling. The curling club is potentially looking, or at least discussing, if we do something here, could something fit in with them with a new rink. So we don't have that on the drawing, but that's just something that we can discuss with them and see if that's even feasible or not, or if they're interested, because they're going to have to raise money if they want to do it, put it work on this location. So those are some of the things we're looking at right now. But just general idea for estimates on the projects are up there. And the Mesa expansion project kind of a little bit ties in with us looking at this auditorium as well, and trying to look at what the future of this building may be. If it's going to be in our best interest to stay here long range, or if we do something out at this site, do we pull out of here, or is it going to get used for something else, and what's the best thing for the community for this building? So we would like to take a look at this building as well as the facilities that we have on that list, kind of, look at them together so that we don't duplicate, kind of take a look at where we might end up in the future, and what's the best use for these buildings in our community. So that would be the auditorium. Looking at the auditorium would be kind of a part of this process as well for longer range planning.
And I think one of those things too, I think we had talked about, is the fact that there's not turf out at the mesa right now, and there's ice, which is clearly a good thing. We're gonna have a lot of people when we are actually able to do programming. They're gonna be wondering where the turf went, because I'm guessing a lot of people that went out there maybe didn't use the ice, but they were using the turf. So,
yeah, we had a lot of people coming out there
yeah,
using turf that wouldn't have come otherwise. So that was good. It was great exposure for the building.
right.
And a lot of heavy use, so that was really good. So we need to kind of pull all these together and have that bigger discussion. All right. Outdoor rinks on the list. This is our beautiful new rink up at Polaris Park, and they have on the list to put asphalt surfacing on their other outdoor rinks, and probably do board upgrades and repair, and put the coating on there. So it's really nice to have that big surface for the winter, obviously, but in the summertime you could use it for other things. So it kind of adds another use or another amenity in that area for the summertime as well as the winter. So that's on our list for longer range to go through the rest of the outdoor rinks. Jefferson Park, this is one that's been on our list for quite some time, the property behind the old Jefferson School area. And we had at one time put this plan together, and we had a dog park and a parking lot, restroom, normal amenities. There's a playground on there, I think. Also a skate park in a different location in town. So this project is still on our list for longer range to look at. want to do something out there, we can use this plan or do something different, but this is what we had. It was a couple years ago that just one or maybe a little longer that we put this
Yeah, I think we
together.
finished everything up in 2018.
This is alright. So this one's still out there. Softball. Now, so there's a few things going on here. The Southfield complex, we did the turf fields, turned out great out there. And so we have a beautiful complex there, but we still, the one thing that was left on that list, or there were a couple things, but the press box concession area was discussed by the user groups, and everyone kind of in this, some water utilities that need to be redone. So that's on the list. That group has met again recently. The price tag for their project was almost $1 million. That was designed originally, so now they're going back to the drawing board to see if they can maybe get that number down and still get something that they like. So they've been actively meeting. There's 385,000
385.
in the community facility fund that would go towards this project, but they need to raise the rest, so they're trying to figure out what they want to do. Complex grading work would be on the east side, the 4 diamonds that are on the east side of the complex, talking about regrading over there and fixing the drainage issue that has been causing problems for a long time, or at least getting it to work a lot better than it does. So that's on the list. And that would redo those 4 fields basically, with them, in really nice condition and get the drainage fixed over there. And then we could use those for quite some time. But on the long range plan also is discussion of a new softball complex somewhere, maybe on the outskirts of town. So Scott figured we need about 30 acres. So the first thing would be to find a piece of land someday down the road. And when developers work, sometimes that can happen sooner than you think. So we want to at least talk about what that project would look like and be ready for when a piece of land becomes available that we could get. We can at least start that way. So we can fix the fields that we have so we can use them and maybe attract some nicer tournaments, and then look long range to build a new complex somewhere. And then we've got some drainage work up at North Hill as well. So these are on the longer range list. The indoor tennis complex, looked at a new liner system to reline the building, and that would include the liner and lighting. Get some extra insulation with basically kind of like it's like a white vinyl type liner that they put in, and it's very common in ice rinks for the ceilings get lined with this material, but you can do the whole building. They've got a nice estimate, a nice looking project, and it would really spruce that building up. And then court resurfacing at some point in the future as well out there. We would, the resurfacing would get done at some point, but the liner system and the upgrades to the building, we prefer that we actually own the building before we invest those dollars in there. And we're starting to have that discussion with the city now when we combine together. This building, the North Hill complex, those were a couple that were on the list that could potentially get transferred just over to us permanently. So we're at least having that discussion with the city right now. If we can make any progress, we'll bring the information back to you guys. That was something that we talked about when we combined together, that could happen in the future. So,
How are the courts up there? Are they in good shape, the surface?
Yeah, they are in good shape. There's a few little cracks, and we've cleaned them like 2 years ago. About 2 years ago, we washed them. But if we did a new liner system, it'd probably be time then after we finish that to resurface, new paint job, maybe put new post in, upgrade. So it will look brand new.
floor is really nice out there, as far as it's nice, flat, not all cracked up or heaving or anything. It's a really nice surface, so it's just spruce up the rest of the building. It will be a really nice complex for us for a long time without having to spend millions of dollars. So, all right, and then the Overlook Park. After the Children's Museum is finished, we had designed some areas to the north across from the Grand, where the bridge goes across on our property that goes up to the north where the road intersection is. So that's on our list long range too. like to get the museum project finished and our infrastructure finished. And then we talked about partnering with groups, and there's some potential out there for that. So this is on our longer range plan list for something that when the other project gets done, we can start looking at this one.
And this last one.
It must be closer. All right, so those are the larger projects. We have a lot of smaller items that we normally just work through our budget process. It keeps a running list of all of that, our departments, and things that they need, equipment, smaller projects that we don't need to have special consideration for funding for, so we just try to get those done as we can afford them. So, but this is kind of the big picture list for us for right now. Flood control, and as those projects kind of move through our property, those are typically things that we have to fund, but those will happen at some point in the future as the city is able to get funding secured for that project, especially in Roosevelt Park. And the pool area and the zoo area are going to be huge impacts. So when those kind of get closer, we'll get more involved, give you guys more information on what's going on with those. This is our list, and kind of the first, I suppose, 5 projects on there are very possible for us to move ahead with next year. Bond rates stay the way they are. Getting bonding in the 2% ranges. I mean, we'll never see that again. I don't know, I guess you can't predict that, but I haven't seen those rates since I've worked here. Maybe one other time where we got into the 3s, so we've had a chance to get a couple projects done and have a very low interest rate if we decide to move ahead.
You kind of need that from the board here, is our feelings on all of that, right? And
Right, and you don't have
priorities.
don't have to decide tonight, just have a discussion and think about it. We could have this on the agenda again in December. That would be fine.
And the timeline would be, what needs to be the timeline to have it in place if we do something?
We'd like to know in December and commit to the projects that we want to move ahead with. Obviously, if something changes, we can pull back on something, but we need to get at least our bond ready going and get our final project plan sets done and get ready to advertise. Like we advertising some of these in February, some in March. You can push out to April, but then you start pushing into more competitive times for everybody. So it's nice to get some earlier. So,
Any comments, commissioners, or what are you thinking?
The only question I have is like you said, some of these here, like timeline, like I look at the pool liner. If we wait till December, will that be done by the swimming year? Or is that something that's gonna have to take all summer to get done, or?
Yeah, we can see some closing in the next one, we should get done.
Yeah.
so it'd be just like these, but
So it'd be a fall,
So we will not get it done this year, springtime before.
You just don't know what your weather's gonna be like.
Okay.
When we talked to that gentleman earlier, it was, close at Labor Day, he'd be in the next day, kind of like the Lawrence Light stuff. Be in the next day and just go.
Okay, I didn't know if that was
And he was about a 30 day.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
It wasn't a long, but I think starting in the spring here is a lot tougher than waiting until the fall. But if it's approved, we'll get on the horn immediately and see what his schedule is like too. After the first of the year.
And there's nothing, I mean, we commit to moving these forward and something changes and times get worse. We need to put a halt to something or change the order, we can do that right up until the time that the bond is sold and we're paying for the project. And, we have the money sitting there. Even then, I guess we could postpone it if we needed to, if we really felt, but that money then has to still be spent on the project, so there wouldn't be really much point in that, so.
Kind of, my mind go back to something Commissioner Emery said a few meetings ago about, there are projects that have to get done that have maybe been held off on for a little while. You have to start doing some of that. Words in your mouth, but I look at some of these at the top, and, I'm not getting the Heritage Fund money. I think back to something you always say, just because a funding mechanism maybe goes away doesn't make the idea a bad idea. I mean, it's still a great project that I think we want to roll with. When you talk about borrowing money is dirt cheap right now. Doesn't mean you just borrow it to borrow it, obviously, but.
We're committed to the Children's Museum project.
Correct.
If we're gonna do a bond issue, then we can add a few things onto it at a great rate.
I think one of the question marks for me is the zoo project, just not knowing what the next 3 months of fundraising may look like. It's tough to know, and not that you would know, obviously. No one does, so.
We do also have at least $1 million and maybe a little bit more that we would put into our future development fund. We have that, to go towards the outdoor recreation area project. So we have some cash as well that can go towards these projects, so.
Two questions. One would be on the parking lot for the children's museum. Do you think that's feasible or doable, that it is something that we will have to do next year, or more for 2022 start?
Yes, we met with the whole group, and we discussed kind of the timing of everything. At least the utilities need to come in, well, during the summertime when they're shelling in the building, so that they can get over the winter, then they have the utilities there. We also have a street that we're gonna have to tear up to put the utilities in that people use, including us. We have rec programs going on up there, and the neighborhood uses that street. So talking about like closing the street, half of it for part of the summer, and then close the other half for part of the summer. It didn't sound like it would be a good idea for us to wait till the following year to start the project. It seems like we should start it, maybe even get it to the point where it could be gravel over the winter, or do the first layer of asphalt and then do the second layer in the spring. But the timing of the building project, it sounds like we should start that this year instead of next year. I mean, when I say that, in 21 instead of 22.
Yeah. The other question is on the fourth rink. We talked a while back about putting up the shelf and being able to, if nothing else, figure out something for ice and turf. Have we ever gotten a cost or ballpark cost, what would it cost just to put up the shelf and finish it later?
We had a number in our estimate of about 5.8, but I think that's the total.
That 5.8, again, the master plan was done by Ackerman Principal. The 5.8, I talked to a contractor that we used quite heavily, and kind of laid it out what we were looking for. One full-size sheet of ice, mini sheet of ice, call it 10 locker rooms, office space up front. I mean, not Taj Mahal, but just a nice building, plus an ice plant, just in case, we want to add on to that and put it out to a curling rink or something. So that was that 5.8. To start backing things out, I'm not, this was a favor, so I don't know what we need to do to start having somebody spend a lot more time on that. So
that's the high end, Chuck, with everything included. It would be obviously less than that if we start, doing more of a bare bones project.
Well, I guess if I'm looking at bare bones project, the conversation was to be able to just have a place to use as a field house temporarily. Yeah, we talked about that last spring, that all this stuff started.
So that's something that we can work on. We may have Brian help us, because they did the original estimate. Got somewhat of a number that they that we got where we were at. They could probably help us if you wanted us to give the number.
Well, I'd like, we had talked before about doing that. I'd like to see what that number would be, because right now, the idea of a 4th sheet of ice, I don't think is a priority. That we maybe should be going towards what a place to put turf down, whether you put the new building up, put ice in there, and put the turf down on the west rink or the F rink. Ideally on the sand on the F rink, west rink, but it'd be some numbers I'd like to see.
Okay. If everybody's agreeable, we can start working on that at least, come up with some options.
It's easy to justify that just by looking at how much that turf was used.
Yeah.
I mean, people will use it. So,
Even in our planning, granted, everything's on hold right now, but even in our planning, we get really excited when like, we don't have the turf. So I know for antlers and stuff, it would be utilized.
any other comments or ideas or thoughts? Do we want to have
Just a comment.
Go ahead.
I know you guys know, but we do have basically the final plan set for the golf course, shelf ready, shovel ready. We had a couple of permitting things we're still working on. They were working on the wetland survey kind of in the north, it would be the northeast corner of the property. And just a few things left on that, but I mean, basically the plan set is done, so that we come to the point where we have a major water event or things turn around. We got that ready to go, so that was a directive that everybody decided that we wanted to do that, so we did. And now that can sit there and for future discussion, at least we have that much. So.
And last year, didn't we have, in this room, didn't we kind of have a special meeting to look at some of the bigger projects? Did we do that?
Yeah.
We did, right? I mean, is that something that we want to try and do between now and the next meeting? So when we get to December, we've had a good chance to actually just talk about this specifically. See some nodding heads.
I think so. Yes.
We could have our firms that help us put the plans together for some of the things we have to come for, at least we can get some plans that you guys can look at instead of just the concept. We can have some work that we can share. We can have some other numbers to look at by then, maybe not, but at least we'd sure be happy to have more discussion about this.
What do you think on a timeline for that? Do we want to do it before the next meeting? Probably.
Yeah, we can do it in the first part of December. I don't know what everybody's schedule is like. I mean,
Being like that week of the 7th, perhaps, in December?
do it the week before the board meeting. That would give us a little more time. Numbers. If we don't get any numbers.
The week of the 7th is, the board meeting is the 15th. Be early. Got a track record of missing those.
You want to have travel plans?
You want to shoot for the,
I'm gonna travel.
you want to shoot for the 8th, Tuesday the 8th?
That's good for me.
All right?
It's good with me. How about you guys?
Mike, are you back?
I'm back from Omaha the 7th,
Okay.
so I'm lucky I'm back there.
You want to say 4 o'clock in the afternoon?
Yep.
We're good with that? 4 in the afternoon on the 8th? Okay.
Then we will email this list out to you guys. We can do that tomorrow.
Okay.
So you can take a look at it and then we'll see what else we can come up with for information by that meeting on the 8th.
Can you, the field house, there's some numbers on the field house here, but since we're going to get Chuck's request, I'd like to see what the field house fees compare. Okay, good.
Ryan was accurate.
Yeah, we can look at those to look at what a field house compares to a fourth rank versus the top. I'd like to look at a field house too. Sure.
All right.
What time?
4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
I think we're all good with that. All right, let's go on to number 2, new business rules and regulations ordinance amendment. We talked about this last meeting, and I know we just got a copy of it.
Yeah,
I'll
that's just a hot off the press copy. So the idea with this, I'm gonna let Pete step in here, just a quick overview. We wanted to we have a rules and regulations ordinance. I feel like we need to amend it to put an agreement together between us and Ward County, so that they can help us enforce outside of the city limits. When we have issues at the Bison plant and other, if we have any other, we'll have one more property potentially, and maybe more in the future. But we need to pull them into the mix here too. And so Pete has been looking at the language, and he's put together a draft that I think we could talk about. Maybe we could pass it tonight, but then look at, doing some amendments if we need to, if you guys want to at least have that discussion tonight. So I'm gonna have Pete kind of go through it.
Sure. And as Ron said, we were looking at a revision of the current ordinance 235, which is the ordinance that deals with or regulates conduct on park district or in park district facilities and on park district property. So what we were looking at is a change to the ordinance, an amendment to the ordinance that would give the park district a little bit more autonomy over its own property. And also, as Ron had mentioned, we have the issue with the bison plant, and we have need for a partnership for enforcement of any of our ordinances and or our orders and rules and regulations that might be promulgated by the park district. And we have a nice, unique operation or partnership with the city of Minot, wherein we have the ability to have the police patrol and enforce park district ordinances, city ordinances. We have this issue with the bison plant being outside the boundaries of the city of Minot, and therefore we have a need to build a partnership with, and we've reached out to the county attorney and so forth and sheriff's office to look at forming that partnership, but it kind of requires a little bit in the way of the changing of our ordinances to allow for that partnership, as Ron said, and also uncouples us from the requirement to have to follow city ordinances.
We're going to bring the county ordinances into the mix now too, so
right.
Sometimes they don't match, and we need to be able to decide on our own which one we want to follow or enact our own if it doesn't work. So
correct. Yeah. I would ask everyone to pull out a pen. I have in reviewing this, it is kind of a work in process, but I would ask that you pull out a pen and you look at two minor revisions. I don't know if you were given them in color, unfortunately not. I apologize for that, but it should be very easy. If you go to page 2, under section 3D, I guess I would recommend that the first of those two sentences be cut. They are a little bit too repetitive. When we put them in there, it's very clear, but I think it's maybe a little too repetitive. I might have overdone myself there. And then, so I would suggest that you cut the first line, and D would begin with in the event, the park district, etc.
So on the blue on the color one.
The blue on the color one would be cut. And I'm sorry.
This first little sentence.
And then there is a change, or there was a proposed change under page 2, section 4A, in the very first sentence. I don't think it's required, so I would recommend a cut to that. Underline provision. Other than that, it is my belief that the revisions to the ordinances will fulfill the desires of the park district to be able to uncouple themselves from the city ordinances where they deem appropriate and give us the ability to not only partner with the Minot Police Department and City Court, but hopefully in the future with the Ward County Sheriff's Office and the District Court. So, does anyone have any questions at this time?
Question on the section B and D, I guess.
B and D. On what page?
Page 2. Sorry.
Okay.
3B, 3D.
Yeah,
It says, if we conflict with city ordinances. Once we have the agreement with the county, would that be city/county ordinances?
well, actually, you also kind of look at, we thought about that, but we do have kind of an incorporation provision under section 4, where it talks about under 4B, I believe it is, in the event that subsection, sorry, you might have to read the entire provision relating to it, but there is a provision in there under section 4, except as provided under subsection C of the city ordinance, or city ordinances shall apply to park district facilities, and shall likewise apply to park district facilities without the city of Minot. B talks about outside the park district, outside the city jurisdiction, excuse me, and how our ordinances apply. Our ordinances would take into effect section 3, which incorporates the county. So it's kind of weird.
So the one example that comes up all the time would be the leash scenario. There's no leash ordinance outside of the city limits, but we can then apply the leash ordinance to our property outside by the limits.
I just thought
That's just one example.
No, and I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
And
I
then
mean,
then
that's something we can
there
take
could be
under further consideration and maybe amend how we can before our next board meeting.
The second reading.
Yep. I believe it's kind of incorporated in there, but I'll definitely take another look at it.
Any more questions for Pete? We'd be looking for a motion, if so desired, to accept this, the first reading.
As with the proposed revisions
With
or
the
without?
revisions that you gave us.
Okay. And I think that's just a yea or nay vote. It doesn't have.
Gotcha.
Make a motion to accept the first reading with the updated provisions.
Second. Moved by Schmidt, second by Upton. Any more discussion or questions? Discussions? All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes. Thanks, Pete. We want to do old business. Any old business that anyone wants to talk about? Or other business?
I have one item, just a recommendation that we consider, and maybe it could be studied and brought back to the next meeting, an improved remote connection so that you could be at home or somewhere else and take part in this meeting as a commissioner or as anybody out there. What we have works, doesn't work very well.
So I think we will be addressing that in our new budget. We are gonna put in a nice video system in here with a sound system, and it'll be tied to our computer in here. So I think that will be the goal of that, is for us to be able to have better live streaming capabilities. It's kind of difficult right now. So
Any
that,
idea what that was gonna cost?
I think we put 16 or 17,000 in the budget to do the whole system. That'll be a nice camera system. We'll be able to switch views, be able to run it from a laptop up here, so that if somebody comes up to the podium, we can switch the view to the podium and then have the view on us as well. So that'll include also another projector.
Wonder if we can't try and get like a Zoom thing set up for next meeting or our special meeting in 3 weeks too. I mean, that may be something just in the interim that maybe we would just look at and try and figure out something and make sure it works before the meeting. But I know we've had a couple times where it hasn't worked real
Hasn't
well.
worked well, and it's a frustrating experience, and if you're gonna be involved, you should be able to. I think that's a great idea, Ron. I think we should look at that sooner, if we can figure it out. And in the meantime, look at that. This, obviously, the next 6 months or whatever it's gonna be is more imperative than it even is next summer.
And we are gonna start probably moving everything into this room at some point here soon anyway. Our board table in here, this was the idea to move into this room, spread out more anyway. It's a nicer setup for us, so we'll just start a little bit sooner. We'll at least look into it and see how much we can do before the new budget cycle starts.
That'd be good.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let's move on to alcohol permits. We didn't have any. All right. Never mind, let's not move on. Director's report.
I think pretty much we get a big director's report and everything else with our capital projects. The only thing I wanted to mention is we are going to start our search for a zoo director. Started in December, start advertising, and we'll take from the applications until towards the end of January. And try and set up interviews in February if we're successful in getting good candidates. Trying to have somebody in place, at the kind of before the beginning of the actual season. So we'll keep you up to date on that. We'll update the job description and start advertising in December.
All right, let's move to Commissioner's report. Commissioner Hubda.
I don't have anything.
Commissioner Schmidt.
I have nothing.
Commissioner Emery. Okay. Commissioner Gitzman.
I'm gonna get out of the box a little bit here, so if anybody thinks that this sounds weird, I think at some point the COVID thing's gonna start diminishing when we start vaccinating people. And there's gonna be a lot of relief. I'd like to see us start thinking about doing an event this summer to celebrate of this not being able to get out and all this other things that we've been doing, but to celebrate and getting back to smiles, fun, and change the mood of a community. Does that make any sense? Because we're under a black cloud right now, and it needs to be there. But I want to be thinking yet about, the cloud's going to go away, and then what? I'd like to start thinking about celebrating now, and how that might go. Just planting the seed.
Commissioner, I don't have anything, so if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting. So,
Second.
And a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, let's move into the foundation meeting. Assume the first thing is the minutes. And you? I probably didn't really. No, personal appearances, sorry, any personal appearances from the foundation meeting? All right, seeing none, the minutes from the 20th of October.
Move to approve.
Second?
Motion and second, discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the October statement was down below. It's better than a few months ago, so that's good. Jared, do you have something?
I did put one bill in front of you, foundation president and board members. It's just it's another pass-through bill. It's for the Mason note. So I'm asking for approval of $22,249.90. This, like I said, is a pass-through, and we'll cut a check from the Mason group to cover this expense.
$22,249.90.
Make a motion to do the pass-through, that amount.
Moved by Schmidt,
Second.
second by Hubda. Any discussion? Ellie, call roll.
Hubda?
Yes.
Schmidt?
Yes.
Emery?
Yes.
Gitzman?
Yes.
Olson?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Any other business? All right, then we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Moved and second, discussion. Okay, all in favor? Opposed? All right, thanks, everybody.
Just to note, Steve Gottsick made it through another foundation meeting. 2 in a row. 2 in a row, I missed the last one.
If you don't mind, send that out. All right.
I want them to email me, so I actually have my email list. Gives us some practice.